Rhinebeck is coming up in just over a month, and it got me thinking, while I'm not going to Rhinebeck, if I was, what would I knit for my Rhinebeck sweater? Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda and this is Birchandlily, where I talk about all sorts of fun, crafty, knitty goodness. Today is another pattern roundup video, and this time I am going through a whole bunch of sweater patterns that I've pulled that if I was going to Rhinebeck, I would want to knit these as my Rhinebeck sweater. So before we jump on in, there are a few places that you can find me on the internet. The main one is birchandlilyfiber.com. You can also find me on Instagram at birch.and.lily. And all of the links to everything I talk about today, all of the places you can find me, they'll all be linked down below in the description for you. So I guess I should start with, what is Rhinebeck? Rhinebeck is probably the biggest, well, okay, I can't say it's the biggest because I've never been and I don't know, but I would say it is the most popular sheep and wool festival in the United States. It happens every year in October in Rhinebeck, New York, and everyone puts in a whole bunch of effort beforehand to knit sweaters that they're going to wear while they're at the festival, and that is why they're called a Rhinebeck sweater, because they're wearing them to the sheep and wool festival in Rhinebeck, New York. Like I said, I've never been, I don't know tons about it, but I do know that this is what everyone does, and yeah, I thought it would be fun to kind of window shop and figure out what would I want to knit if I was knitting a Rhinebeck sweater. So as is pretty much customary for me with these videos now, I'm going to be knitting while I'm talking about these patterns with you. This is my alder sweater test knit that I'm working on for Rebecca Clow. I'm not going to go into it too much because I talk about all of the projects that I'm working on my regular podcast episodes. Those go up every second Tuesday, so they kind of alternate with all of my knitting, other knitting content videos like this one. So I talked about it last episode last week, and I will talk about it again next week. But let's just jump right on in. I have sorted these kind of by different types of sweaters, so like cables, I have textured sweaters, that sort of thing. So the first category that I've pulled patterns for is cables. So these are any patterns, obviously, with cables on them. The first pattern being the Lately by Shannon Cook. This is a pullover, and it is a worsted weight pullover. The pattern calls for a gauge of 17 stitches by 26 rows, and it does come in a whole bunch of sizes from 1 to 12. You're looking at a 34.5-inch bust to a 67.5-inch bust, or a 87.5 to 171.5 centimeter bust. Calls for a little bit of ease, anywhere from 4.5 to 5 inches or 12 to 13 centimeters of ease. This pattern is super unique. I pulled it mostly because I thought the hem of it is really cute. So the pattern is knit from the bottom up, and the bottom hem, instead of just being regular ribbing, is folded over, and then you put a little drawstring into it, which kind of makes the sweater feel like a little, I don't know if sporty is the right way to put it, but a little bit more loungy maybe. I don't know, it just adds something really different to it. I don't think I've ever seen a sweater that's knit with this construction with the drawstring at the bottom. So it has that beautiful hem, and then there's obviously tons of pretty squishy cables and drop shoulders. I find, I think I've said this many times before, I think they're probably one of the more versatile pattern types, because like with a raglan or a yoked sweater, there's only, it's going to fit everyone obviously, but it's only going to fit certain people well depending on their body shape. But something about a drop shoulder, it's just a big squishy box, so I feel personally at least that it's pretty hard to find someone who doesn't look great in a drop shoulder garment. Pattern wise, you have written and charted portions of the pattern, so if you haven't read a chart before, I would make sure you learn how to beforehand, or just maybe don't knit this one, I don't know. But it's a beautiful, beautiful pattern. I think Shannon did a great job. Just my luck, my candle set off the smoke alarm. Who knows? I have quite a bit of talent in setting off smoke alarms, so we will let that not burn anymore. Even though it was really cute, just this is not gonna happen Anyways, I think that was about all I had to say about the Lately sweater. It's really cute, and I think it would make a wonderful Rhinebeck sweater. Believe it or not, I know I keep saying I'm in a cardigan phase, but this is the only cardigan pattern that I pulled for this video. This is the 3-season cardigan by Wool and Pine. It is another worsted weight garment. I'm feeling nice chunky knits right now. I think fall's coming, and it's just time for those cozy squishy knits. So I did find this a little bit weird, and I can't remember, I've pulled Wool and Pine patterns before, and I feel like they've always had the gauge available on the Ravelry page, but this one did not. It did say, obviously, that the gauge is available when you purchase the pattern, but there was no gauge given on the Ravelry page. So that's a little weird to me, but you know, it is what it is. I trust Wool and Pine patterns. I've knit from them before, so I do know that they're well written. It's just strange to me that the gauge isn't given on the Ravelry page. Anyways, worsted weight cardigan. It comes in 10 different sizes. You're looking at about a 40 to a 75 inch bust, or 103 to 190 centimeters. It calls for about 5 to 9 inches of positive ease, or about 12.75 to 25 centimeters of positive ease. And yeah, obviously it's a cardigan, so you're going to work the body flat, but then you do pick up stitches for the sleeves and knit those in the round. The button band is picked up and knit after the whole rest of the cardigan is constructed, so if you're not a person who likes knitting the button band at the end, this one might not be for you, but I feel like, I don't know, it's like a light at the end of the tunnel thing for me, so I don't mind it too much myself. You will need to be able to read charts to knit this one, but there are video tutorials included, so if there's something you don't understand, I can't remember exactly what the video tutorials were, but they were listed on the Ravelry page. So if you are more of a visual learner, this might be a good pattern for you. And yeah, it's just, it's so pretty. Again, something about, I think it's the worsted weight combined with the cables that makes it so wonderful, or makes a worsted weight cabled pattern stand out to me. I feel like it just makes the cables look even more squishy. So it's a beautiful cardigan. It's got a v-neck. That's usually my preference for cardigans, is a v-neck cardigan. I feel like they look the best left open or done up. They're a little bit more versatile that way, and it's just beautiful. It would be a quick knit, but a really, really classic, beautiful knit. Another pullover that I did pick was the Keep It Warm sweater. This is a pattern by Yeon. I really hope I said that right. I was kind of practicing beforehand, I'm not gonna lie, but I hope I said that right. Anyways, it's a beautiful pattern, and the designer's name is on the screen and down below in the description. Again, another pullover. This one is a DK weight pullover. So you're looking at 20 stitches by 22 rows for your gauge on this one. It comes in sizes extra, extra small through 2XL. That is a 34 to 52 inch bust, or a 87 to 132 centimeter bust. Has a wide range of ease possibilities for this one, anywhere from 2.75 to 6 inches, or 7 to 15 centimeters of positive ease. It's knit top down with a fold over collar. Y'all know my preference is fold over. Something about them is so squishy, but they have structure. They don't stretch out as much. It's just like a single collar. They're my preference, so I appreciate that this one includes that. And then it's just full of lacy, cabley goodness. There's a big panel of, it's hard for me to tell from the photos, and I don't own the pattern itself, but it looks like lace and cables down the front. The sleeves have what looks to be like a honeycomb cabled lace thing going on down them. It's really, really beautiful and really feminine, I think. Just a classic pretty pattern. I don't think I mentioned it calls for holding fingering and lace weight yarn together, so that gives it that nice halo, fuzzy softness, but you could also knit this up with just straight DK weight yarn as well. The only thing with me knitting and talking at the same time is that I get to a point where I need to pause, and you guys don't see this, maybe I'll leave it in because it's funny, but I gotta pause and I gotta flip my page in my notebook, and I gotta get myself to a decent spot on my knitting before I can go to the next one. But I still it to be more productive than just sitting here and staring at a camera. And if I'm looking down occasionally, you don't really care because I have photos on the screen. That's the whole point, so that if I look down, no one cares. Anyways, I have one more pattern in the cable section. I did include this in the cable section, but there aren't actually cables. It's faux cables. So this is the Magnolia Bloom. It's a pattern by Camilla, and it is another worsted weight pullover. This one has a gauge of 12 stitches by 17 rows. It comes in sizes extra small through, it says 2/3XL, anywhere from a 36.5 inch to a 56 inch bust, or 93 to 142 centimeters. Ease for this one is about 4 to 6 inches, or 10 to 15 centimeters. And like I said, I'm 99% sure that these are faux cables just made with increases and decreases in your lace, which is awesome. If you want the look of cables, but maybe they're a little too intimidating to you still, this would be a great one to try. I used to love knitting stuff like this when I was slightly more of an avid sock knitter. I don't knit socks much anymore, but faux cable, like lacy socks were always a favorite of mine because they have wonderful stretch to them, but they still give you that look of a cable. They're not stiff like a cable. So anyways, I hope that makes sense. But yeah, it's got the beautiful lacy cables, and then it also has baubles. If you're not a bauble person, you could totally omit them really easily, but I think they add something really cool to this garment. Okay, so moving on from the cable section, I have also pulled just some beautiful textured patterns. So these would be anything from like an all over texture to, I have a lot that are mixes of textures, but I really like the interest that a textured garment creates. So the first one I pulled is the Community Cozy sweater. This is from Alicia Plummer. I do believe this actually is her Rhinebeck sweater pattern for this year. A lot of designers will release a pattern with Rhinebeck in mind, and then all sorts of people will all knit it and kind of meet up together at Rhinebeck to share their sweaters with each other, which I think is so cool. But yeah, I think this is Alicia Plummer's Rhinebeck sweater for this year. This is knit with DK weight yarn held double to make about an Aran weight. For the sample, I do believe it is knit with an unspun yarn held double, so I feel like that maybe gives it a little bit more of a fuzzy look to it, but you could totally get away with DK held double or just a straight up Aran. I feel like it's pretty versatile just with the texture that this pattern does have. The gauge it calls for is 13.5 stitches by 20 rows. Comes in 11 different sizes, anywhere from a 41.5 to a 77 inch bust, or that is 105.5 to 195.5 centimeters. Ease on this one calls for about 5 to 10 inches, or 15 to 25 centimeters. Now, when I first looked at this pattern, I felt like it was a pretty simple knit. Reading more into it, I have learned that there's a lot of seaming involved. So the front and the back portions of the sweater are knit flat separately and then seamed together with a 3-needle bind off at the shoulder and then like a mattress stitch down the sides, and then after that you pick up for the sleeves. The sleeves are knit in the round, and then you add the collar and the... No, you don't add the hem. What am I saying? You just add the sleeves and the collar after you've seamed the front and the back together. So that made me a little more wary about knitting this, but not tons. I have done... I'm trying to think now. I think I've seamed on 2 different garments this year, and it really wasn't as bad as I thought. It's definitely time consuming, and you have to pay attention to what you're doing. Now I'm thinking about it, I think I've seamed on 3 garments. Either way, I've done some and I didn't hate it as much as everyone seems to say I should. I didn't find it that bad. It was kind of relaxing, but you have to be in the right mindset for it. So if you're brave and you want to jump into some seaming, I think this is beautiful. It just has the most simple squishy, like basket weave looking texture to it almost. It's made just simply with knits and pearls, and it has the most beautiful, deep, squishy, wonderful collar to it as well. I just feel like it would be the perfect throw on, curled up with some knitting and a book by the fireplace type sweater. I also pulled the Boulevardier by Thea Coleman. This is another pullover knit in just DK weight yarn, gauge of 20 stitches by 28 rows, and it is also seamed. I don't know what I was doing when I was pulling these, but I was pulling seamed patterns. Anyways, it comes in 11 sizes as well, from a 41 to a 74.5 inch bust, or 104 to 189.25 centimeters. That is a mouthful. It has anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of ease, or 15.25 to 20.5 centimeters of ease. So it is also worked in two separate portions, the front and the back, and then you seam those together. It didn't state the method of seaming, but I'd assume it would be like a 3-needle bind off on the shoulders again, and then mattress stitch down the sides. After you do that, you pick up stitches for the sleeves and the collar and knit those onto the garment. Now, I do appreciate that while this has seaming, it stated why it has seaming. The pattern notes on Ravelry said that just with the nature of all the texture in this garment, it has a lot of drape, and that wasn't exactly what she was going for with the pattern, so the seaming does add some structure to the garment, and I think it would also prevent it from stretching out too much once you've worn it for a while or washed it a couple times. I think it just helps to keep the integrity of the garment and that structure to it. And I love this one because I feel like you can never get bored with it. It's just so many different textured stripes, and so after you've hit the point of boredom with one type of texture, you're moving on to the next one and you're not bored again. So I think even though it is knit flat, it would keep me really, really engaged, and it's really beautiful. I've heard of Thea Coleman before many times, but I've never knit any of her patterns. But after I found this one, I did go through her pattern collection on Ravelry, and there are a lot of beautiful ones in there. So along the same lines of those stripy textured panels, the Storm sweater by PetiteKnit, another beautiful pullover. If you've seen the Ingrid sweater before, this is similar to the Ingrid sweater, but there's no cables. It's just straight up knits and purl texture. I don't even think there's any twisted stitches. I'm pretty darn positive it's just knits and purls. So if you've seen the Ingrid and it's ever so slightly intimidating to you, this one might be the sweater for you. It's knit in DK weight yarn with a gauge of 20 stitches by 32 rows. Sizes extra, extra small through 5XL are available. That is a 42.5 inch bust to a 63 inch bust, or 108 to 160 centimeters. So this one calls for quite a bit of positive ease. It's going to be a really big, squishy, cozy garment. You're looking at 10.25 inches or 26 centimeters of positive ease. So, like I said, it's got those beautiful textured sections. They're all separated by purl bump rows. It's worked from the top down, which I love. You can try it on as you go. It has a folded collar, which I also love. I really, really want to knit this one. Can you not tell? Can you not tell? I want to knit this one so badly. I dye yarn myself. Oh, my sweater fell down behind me. Whoopsies. I do dye yarn myself, so like I have beautiful tonals that I could use, but I also have some hoarded in my stash from other dyers, sweater quantities of pretty yarn. I don't know, just something about this in a beautiful crisp tonal would be so pretty. It has charts for all of the sections on it, which is great, even though they are just knits and purls. I find myself in a pattern like this, it's so much easier for me to pay attention to where I am if I have a chart as opposed to written instructions. And yeah, like I said, no cabling, it's only texture. Okay, so we're done with texture, we're done with cables. Let's move on to some color work. The first pattern that I have pulled is the Tata Matilda. This is a pattern by Marziasknit, and I just think it's so unique. It's so unlike any other color work that I have seen before. It is a pullover that is knit out of sport weight yarn. It's got a gauge of 22 stitches by 34 rows. Sizes extra small through 3XL are available, and you're looking at about 32 to 56 inch bust measurements for that, or 82 to 142 centimeters. Ease-wise calls for about 2 inches or 5 centimeters of positive ease. This is worked top down. It is a yoked sweater, so you're just going to be working in creases and making a big huge circle until it's time to split for the sleeves, and it just has this really pretty graphic floral motif on it. It kind of looks like the flowers are like falling down from the collar of the sweater down into the body, and it alternates, so you have some flowers that are in your darker colored yarn, and then eventually it switches. I can't remember which way it switches. My photos, I usually have photos in front of me for these videos, but I tried to print them off, and it literally, I don't even have the paper near me anymore because I recycled it, but it just printed me off blank pages. So I'm just using my memory to remember what they look like, and I have aphantasia, which means I can't see anything in my mind. So I'm doing the best I can, which I feel like I'm doing pretty decently. Anyways, it either starts with the darker color for the flower petals and switches, no, it definitely starts with the lighter color for the flower petals and then switches to the flowers being darker. Anyways, there's a photo on the screen for you to see. But I think this is really, really pretty and unique, and I just feel like there's so many fun color combinations you could do for this one. If you did like a really neutral color for the main color of the body and then some sort of variegated color for the flowers, I think it would be so pretty. I also pulled the Clairdelune by the Petite Knitter, not to be confused with PetiteKnit. They're two totally different designers, but the Petite Knitter does a lot of really, really pretty color work, like classic. I think is she from Iceland? Don't quote me on that. Anyways, she's from somewhere very, very cold. You know, maybe it's even like up north in Canada. Anyways, besides the point, she does a lot of really, really classic, cozy, squishy color work garments. And this is a really fun one. I think it would be great for like a newer color work knit or two. Yes, this whole sweater is totally color work, but the motifs are really, really simple. You're only ever holding 2 strands of yarn at a time, and they're all just in like simple stripes running around the body. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself here. This is a worsted weight garment. It is 18 stitches by 24 rows. Comes in 10 different sizes, anywhere from a 35 to a 70 inch bust or an 89 to 178 centimeter bust. You're looking at about 4 to 7 inches of positive ease or 10 to 18 centimeters. And yes, it is worked top down. It has the coolest 2-color ribbing for the collar, so really, really simple color work to kind of get you going with the project and get you started, and then it moves into all the stripes of beautiful, beautiful color work. It is a unisex pattern, so I think that just means that the shaping on it would work well for any body type, which is great. And it doesn't look like it has too many long floats. So if you haven't done a lot of color work before, when you're not knitting with one of the colors, it travels in behind your knitting, and we call that a float, the strand of yarn. And when you have really, really long floats, typically what I've been taught is more than 5 stitches. You have to catch them in the back so that you can't accidentally like get a finger in there or something and snag your floats and like tug on your knitting and make a big huge mess when you're wearing the finished garment. But this pattern doesn't look to me like it has a lot of stitches that are more than 5, so I don't think you would have to catch a lot of floats on this. Something else fun, which I sent to my friend because I knew she would lose her mind over it, but it also has a matching sweater pattern for a bunny. My friend has 2 bunnies and I sent it to her and I was like, you've got to learn how to knit because your bunnies need sweaters. I feel like you could modify it for like a dog or a cat as well, but it's specifically made for a bunny rabbit and it's free and it's really cute to have matching sweaters. I love it. This final pattern, I think everyone's been talking about lately, but I couldn't help but include it because it's just so beautiful. This is the Instant Crush sweater by Locatelli, and I didn't realize until I started researching for this video that it is knit out of 2 strands of mohair or suri held double to give you a DK weight. So you're looking at a gauge of about 19 stitches by 25 rows, so it is a little bit looser of a gauge, but the fluff from the mohair or the suri will fill in those gaps for you. And I'm curious to see what the weight of this sweater is because suri and mohair are, I have some right beside me here, so light and so airy, like to the point that my camera can't even focus on it without my hand behind it. But to hold 2 strands of that together, that sweater has to feel like nothing, which I just think is so cool. If you were allergic to mohair and suri, you could totally knit this up with a DK weight yarn. The pattern even states that itself, but I think it would be so fun to try it in the suri. And I'm looking at my yarn wall, like of stuff that I have dyed myself, and I will be honest, suri is not my best seller, so I have skeins of it kicking around, and I feel like there are just so many fun combinations of what I could do with this, so I don't know, it's just different. I think this is also Hohi's Rhinebeck sweater for this year. I love it. I'm getting ahead of myself again. This comes in 10 different sizes, from a 30.5 to a 64-inch bust, or 76 to 160 centimeters. Calls to have little to no ease. It looks to me, and if I remember correctly, Hohi in her sample photos has about 1 inch of positive ease, so not very much at all. Color work is charted, which I love. It's a top-down raglan, which I love. It doesn't state it anywhere on the pattern notes, so if I'm wrong on that, I'm so sorry. But looking at the photos, I can see the raglan lines in it, so I'm like 99% positive this is a raglan. I haven't purchased the pattern yet because I need to control myself. But when I do knit this, because I know I really, really want to knit this, I'm pretty positive it's raglan. And raglans fit me the best, which is really exciting to me, especially for a color work garment, because I find most of the time color work garments, if there's color work up in the top, they are going to be like a round yoked garment. So I love that it's a raglan, and I love that it uses 4 different colors. So I feel like depending on your size of garment, you could get away with using some scraps from your stash, or like you probably really only need a skein or 2 of each color, so I feel like there's lots of room for play. You could probably even add and do more than 4 colors or only 2 colors, or I just feel like there's endless possibilities with this one. So another really, really fun pattern that I think I sound the most excited about this one, so maybe if I was going to Rhinebeck, this should be the one I knit. Anyways, that is all that I have pulled for you today. I hope you were inspired. Please let me know down below if you're going to Rhinebeck. Are you knitting a Rhinebeck sweater? Are you not going to Rhinebeck and you're still knitting a Rhinebeck sweater? I know people do that. Leave down in the comments what you're knitting if you're going. I want to know. Let's talk about Rhinebeck. I would really love to go within the next couple years. My husband and I live close enough that we could get away with driving there, and so I really want to make it happen. This year doesn't work because the same weekend of Rhinebeck I have tickets to a concert, which I'm very excited about too, and that's totally fine, but maybe next year. Anyways, if you liked what you saw today and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I do know that like half of the people that watch my videos are not subscribed, so make sure you do that so you know every time I upload a video. I do put up videos every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will see you again next week. Bye!